This is where the door-to-door sales thing really came on, you know? It's like, I don't care how many people say no to me because I've got nothing to lose. And I kept looking at like, what do I need to do to be more like them? Like, what do I need to do to be able to produce content that's either gonna look like theirs or emulate theirs, or if Lumix likes these people, what do I need to do to be more like those people? Let me send you out some forms, and then I got talked to by Sean, and then all of a sudden, we were in.
So in today's episode, we are going to sit down and talk to Cody Scheff, who's not only a talented creator, but also an amazing snowboarder from the British Columbia area. And on top of that, he is an official Lumix Creator, part of the Backstage creators group. And specifically in this episode, we're gonna be diving into the conversation, how he actually ended up becoming a Lumix Creator from scratch with no huge or big social media following, to ending up in Japan to talk about the Lumix S9. So without any further introductions, Cody, how are you, brother?
I'm doing really, really well. How are you, Matt?
Dude, I'm doing so good. I think one thing I want to mention to my audience that I found out before this recording is Cody's getting married tomorrow. And he's the OG and shows up to the Lumix Creators podcast on time too. I was like a solid 10, 15 minutes late to my own show because I thought it started 30 minutes later. So thank you. And congrats.
No problem.
As well.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I'm stoked.
And I mean, I also had the chance to meet your soon-to-be wife tomorrow, Bonnie, who's an incredible human being in Japan as well, because you guys were biking all around that.
Oh man,
dude,
I'm so sick. Such good times.
I'm so
out there.
sick. Yeah, well, so we'll get into that, but before we kind of get there, can you kind of just tell my audience kind of who you are? Kind of what you do, and kind of all the good juicy details that kind of I left out for you to introduce yourself more properly.
Yeah, right on, man. So my name's Cody Scheff. I've been basically playing, I'm gonna call it playing with cameras for the last like 4 or 5 years. Got into it through the community of snowboarding, realistically. I was sponsored by, you know, small-time snowboard companies and getting gear and getting photos taken of me all the time over the years. And I just came to a point where I was thinking, like, if I don't have a photographer that's actually following me around, I'm not gonna have anything to show. Like, I'm not gonna have any product. I'm not gonna have anything that I can do to kind of keep me rolling in this kind of sponsored environment that was snowboarding at the time. I guess around 2020 I picked up one of my brother's old cameras and just started taking photos, and just like really started taking photos. I got really into it and just, I don't know, maybe you can call it obsessed. But I didn't really have a whole lot to do, so yeah, just kind of got into this world, and all of a sudden found out that it was really a way for me to like move my passion for winter into something that wasn't just me doing it with my body, but now also doing it with my mind, you know? Like I was able to think about what I wanted to try to create, or I would see a certain scene a whole different way that I wouldn't see before. And through that, I ended up with a passion for photography and videography, and yeah, it just kind of led me down this road, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you being on the mountains with the glorious giant beard, and it also runs in your family. Doesn't a lot of your brothers also have a long orange beard as well?
Well, I know that like the beards are definitely something that does kind of go around in our family. My younger brother Jesse, the youngest one, he looks a lot like me, but he doesn't have a beard right now. He's got a big mustache, so at least he's still got some facial hair to talk about it. And then my middle brother actually doesn't even look anything like us. He's a little bit shorter, darker hair, but we've all got the same squinty eyes, so that's how you can kind of tell.
I know. I mean, there's this one photo that I specifically remember from Japan that I was like, oh, I want to post this photo, and it was of you, but you were holding the S9. I was like, dang it. It's such a sick photo. So this is kind of a little bit of a typical questions I ask a lot of my guests. Is the first one leading up is kind of what brought you to Lumix, and then also what was that first Lumix camera that you ever used and shot on?
Yeah, right. So Lumix was originally introduced to me actually with my good friend Sam. He's a talented videographer down in Australia. And he was actually one of the guys who I was snowboarding with regularly in Japan back in 2020. And he was using a Lumix GH5, so the Micro Four Thirds system. And I was always just so impressed with what he was able to create out of that camera, because I was, you hear about things, people using Sony full frames and Nikons and this and that, but then I started seeing this Lumix and how small the system was and what he was able to bring around on the mountain and just use so quickly. And I was just like, I was floored. I was like, I've never even really heard of what Panasonic can do in the camera space until I started seeing what he could do. Then came time for me to buy a new camera. I really was looking at full frame, and I saw that Lumix had the S5. It looked like a perfect camera, everything that I was kind of envisioning that I wanted for my next camera, something that could do video really well and also take photos fantastically. And then, I don't know, it was kind of a surprise for me, but I saw the S5 II come out and it just had everything that I wanted.
All the bells and whistles.
Everything that I wanted. So I went for that camera. I bought the S5 II and it was fantastic. Like my first experiences of using it, I felt like I was kind of driving a spaceship. There was just so many different things that I could do with this camera. Like there was these level gauges and zebras and histograms and all this stuff. And I thought it was just, yeah, it was amazing. So that was my first experience using one of these cameras. And it's been, I don't know, I wouldn't turn back. I love it.
So you didn't get the S5, you got the S5 II as the first camera?
I got the S5 II, was my first camera.
That's pretty good. You never even had to originally struggle with the contrast-based autofocus.
No, I didn't. I had used the GH5 a couple times and noticed that the autofocus was, I guess, a little less sticky than it is now. But now it's just like, boom, it's on. It's right where I want it to be.
Oh my goodness. I was doing a comparison video, which is already on my channel, but of the GH6 versus the GH7. And the GH6 was, like, in comparison to the GH5, miles better in autofocus terms of that camera. But then I was using the GH6 versus the GH7, and I'm like, holy shoot, I have no idea how I was using this autofocus for so long. Contrast base, man. It was just awful.
Yeah,
it was so bad.
It's okay, it's the past now, we're fine.
It is, I know. It is definitely the past. So what is that current setup looking like? Are you still rocking the S5 II and also
Yes.
the S9? What's the current setups?
So I'm using the S5 II primarily for most of like the workhorse, we'll call it the workhorse of what we're doing out here, just because of its long record times, really great stabilization. Like I use it for everything. I drag this camera around in the mountains. It's water. It's like, it's weather sealed. It's durable. It can handle a lot that you can throw at it. So this is definitely my main camera. The S9, ever since getting that a few months ago, it's kind of changed my shooting experience, to be honest, because it's so compact and it feels a lot like my S5 II, especially in the performance of it. But it's just so small. It's light, it's small, it's simplified. It makes transferring photos and videos so easy. It's good. I wouldn't say that it's my backup camera because I'm using these two cameras for two separate things. I mean, for what we're using our S9, or what I'm using the S9 for, is like real estate videos, real estate photos, anything that you don't need long record times. It fits on a gimbal really easily. Like it's great. They're both capable. They're incredible cameras. But now I'd say for the lenses that I've been using primarily, I mean the 28-200 that came out last year, or just this year, I guess, that was a game changer for me. That's the onboard image stabilization that you get with that, the super long range, focal range. Like I'm using that. I used it for snowboarding this season in Japan for months. It basically just stayed glued onto my camera because it was just easy. We had lots of light. I'm always shooting outside, super compact. Like it was awesome. Yeah, sorry. I'd say like the rest of the lenses that I really enjoy using is just the primes that Lumix has. The 24mm, the 50mm, the 100mm. They're all really, really sharp lenses, super light, super small. I don't know what else you could really want. And they're weather sealed. So it's perfect.
minus the size of the big advantage for the compactness for that 28 to 200. The lens that I've been trying to get my hands on is, have you heard of the Samyang 35 to 150?
Oh, I've seen it.
F2 to f2.8. I'm like, holy shoot, that lens would be so nice for any event filmmaking. I do a lot of pickleball filmmaking for events, and that would be a game changer lens because you have full wide, full tight, and you can be at a consistent f2.8 throughout that entire range. Is nuts for that.
I agree.
Focal gap.
I think it would be nice, obviously, especially for a lot of the low light stuff, because we're doing a lot of filming of like festivals and concerts and that kind of thing. And a lot of time we're just working with, you know, very little light. And I'm already happy that I have the full frame sensor on the S5 and the S9, but it's nice to have, you know, a bigger piece of glass.
So we met in Japan for the first time, and I'll be 100% honest. Besides knowing you as the Lumix Creator who has the orange majestic beard and always a smile on your face, which I feel like is two accurate descriptions of you, I didn't really know who you kind of were before that. I didn't know or hear like how you came up. So I guess let's kind of jump into that whole conversation. I love to kind of hear this journey that you kind of went on to becoming a Lumix Creator. And then also I'd love to also hear, why'd you kind of even sought out doing it, trying to get your notice and get the attention of Lumix, and what you were doing before that, and all those kind of different details.
So basically, it started in the fact that I have a background, I would say, in marketing and sales. Like I've worked door-to-door sales kind of all my life, not all my life, but in good chunks of it, door-to-door sales, business-to-business sales, different types of marketing. I've gone to school for marketing and human resources, things like that. So when I kind of started seeing that social media was not only an avenue for people to connect socially, but also an avenue for brands and companies to be able to connect with their customers on a more personal level, you know, to be able to show people, you know, how your products could be used, how they fit into your lifestyle, things like that. You can kind of start to see that social media itself had a large, I guess, value when it comes to that kind of thing. So when I was in Japan, back in 2017 actually, so this is when I first started doing winter seasons overseas, because, you know, I'm from Canada, but, you know, winter's all over the world, and it's nice to kind of see what it looks like in other places. That's when I kind of started getting picked up by snowboarding companies, so like sponsorships or getting free gear or things like that. And at first I kind of noticed that, like, if you know the right person, or you know, like, the owner of said company, then maybe you'll be able to talk to them and get in with that company. But you have to be able to show that you've got, like, you know, you're good enough. You know, you have to be able to show that you can do what they want you to do with their snowboards, to be able to show people that, you know, I want to buy that snowboard. And the idea was, like, the question was, how do I get this free snowboard? And the answer was really, I need to help that company sell a snowboard. You know, if I get a free snowboard, they should probably sell two, if that makes sense. I had kind of been living in this world of marketing, and like marketing myself and then selling other people's products through the content that I was creating. And after a while, like I said, I got into photography. And I mean, when you first get into photography, I don't know what it is for everybody else, but I mean, I was on YouTube, I was on the internet, I was trying to learn how to edit, I was trying to learn how to use cameras, I was just trying to get information. And all of these, you know, YouTube channels, not all of them, but a lot of the YouTube channels and a lot of the big YouTube names that you might see here and there, they were either sponsored by, you know, a camera company or a, like, you know, a video editing software or whatever, you know, like, it doesn't really matter. I just thought to myself, how am I ever going to get into that situation? Like, how can I fit into the same world that I was doing in the snowboarding world or the snowboarding industry as I could in the photography industry? And I knew right away, I was like, well, I need to be able to sell cameras. That's the only way I'm going to get a camera, is if I can sell a camera, you know? So it's funny because you ask how I got into Lumix specifically. And it was pretty interesting because when I was looking for cameras, I was looking to try to buy a camera, and like I'd said that story earlier, my buddy Sam was using Lumix, and I was looking at all the different photographers that were sponsored by Lumix, a lot of people in the creators backstage. Like, really, it's funny because it was all of you guys, right? I was watching all of you guys from afar, and I kept looking at, like, what do I need to do to be more like them? Like, what do I need to do to be able to produce content that's either going to look like theirs or emulate theirs, or like, if Lumix likes these people, what do I need to do to be more like those people? Not necessarily exactly, but to some extent. So when I was buying these cameras, I looked at the Lumix cameras and I thought to myself, I think there's a good chance that if I stick with this camera system, which might not be like one of the most, publicly popular companies, I might have a good chance of getting into this company, because I think that they're doing really good things. They're pushing the ball forward. They're being, I guess, innovators in the space, but they're still kind of, we could call them the underdogs, if you want to say it that way, At least last year, before the phase detect came on, like, it was definitely more of an underdog type of camera. So I thought, I'm going to go for this. I'm going to buy this camera, and I'm just going to start talking about it. I'm going to start talking about the camera. I'm going to start showing people pictures that I take with the camera. I'm going to show people videos that I take with the camera. And I'm just going to make my social media presence look a little bit more like a person who knows something about cameras, What was really funny is that I saw that Lumix had a collective meetup, and that was down in Ojai, California. And that was the first time that I really, because I had been emailing Lumix, I had been sending them messages, and I guess, like, this is another trick. This is where the door-to-door sales thing really came on, It's like, I don't care how many people say no to me, because I've got nothing to lose, I haven't lost a dime. All I'm doing is putting myself out there, saying, hey, does anybody think that my work is good enough? And if not, that's okay. I'll just ask somebody else, and they'll just keep trying and keep trying. And after that Lumix collective event, it was funny because I saw all of these individual creators who were actually working with Lumix and who had been, representing their brand for even quite some time, a lot longer than I even really knew about the space. So I just started messaging all of you guys. I was like, Lumix isn't going to answer me, so I'm going to answer somebody who maybe works with Lumix, So I messaged everybody that I could see, and you always end up in people's, like, request boxes and things like that, because that's just how Instagram works, But I figured somebody's going to see something, like, I'm going to get some message back. And the crazy thing is that I got a message back from John Simo. And the reason being is that I ended up seeing a video that he had taken, which was of somebody that I knew here in Nelson. Like, so I messaged him, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is Justin. What were you doing here? And I ended up getting a little bit of a conversation with John. And I was asking him, hey, like, you're part of this Lumix collective. What do I need to do? What kind of things is Lumix looking for me to be part of the Lumix collective? And, he just started telling me, he's like, well, do you want an honest answer? I was like, yeah, absolutely. He's like, well, you're going to need to fix this. You're going to need to, talk a little bit more about your camera. You need to show even more that this is what you're motivated to do. And I think that's where a lot of people might lack when they're trying to get support from brands. And I don't mean just for the camera company. It could be support from brands from anywhere. But it's like, what are you doing for them? Because you always want to know, what am I going to get from the company? Like, I want a free snowboard, or I want a car, or I want a vacation to such and such place, or a hotel room, or whatever. Like a lot of influencers will do, or people on the internet will try to do. But you have to really build the values. Like, I'm going to help you sell your product if I'm allowed to come in on this, journey, or so I can jump on your boat, essentially, So that's where it started. And then basically I just spent a couple months just trying to work it up and, like, talk to the camera more, get more used to talking about cameras, get more used to showing people stuff. And then I think it was in November of last year, before I went on another one of my big trips. So like I was doing a kind of documentary film out in Kyrgyzstan of like the snowboarding industry out there and the culture, and like just that it's a new, like not new, but it's a different place to go experience winter if you wanted to go see something like that, right? And I had put out basically just a story on Instagram with just a whole bunch of intention, basically just calling Lumix USA, being like, hey, my name's Cody. I love this Lumix camera and I want to be a part of the Lumix Creator crew. And I don't know what it's going to take, but I'm just going to keep making videos and I'm going to keep talking about it until somebody lets me in. You know, like I'm just going to keep trying. And that video was really interesting because that video was kind of the last straw that finally got the attention. And he was talking to me and he just said, you know what? This sounds pretty cool. I like it, what you're doing. Let me send you out some forms. And then I got talked to by Sean, and then all of a sudden we were in.
Wow. Man, this is like a full journey. Oh my god.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Memorized.
It was nuts. I feel like it's hard not to memorize it because after buying the camera, like even the purchase of the camera came with the intention that I want to get this company's attention. And that intention, like the fact that I kind of just stuck on that goal for like probably a year and a half in total. And I never stopped until I was there. And that was just like anything else in life, you know, like when you find something that you want to do and you just keep trying over and over and over, and maybe there's some bumps in the road, but the bumps just make you better, you know? So
no, I feel like that's the there's the saying that goes around. It's like, wow, they were an overnight success that took them like 7 years.
Right.
And it's just like there's all this work, you know, like I was creating content about the Lumix G9 when I bought it when I was like 20-ish years old, maybe 21-year old. And I was just, all right, I'm going to talk all about this camera. I absolutely was obsessed with the camera, just kept making videos about it. I bought that GH6. I was making videos about that. The Japan trip, the Lumix Japan first trip of the S5 II got launched. I was like, wow, that's so cool. I'd love to eventually get there. And I was obviously at this time, I did this similar thing. I was talking to other Lumix creators. I was messaging them saying it worked so great, trying to just create some type of network. And then eventually May of 2023, Lumix reached out and like invited me into the group to be part of the Lumix Backstage creators, which then lo and below leads to a whole different like rabbit trail of like dreams that like I've been working at for 2 to 3 years, just trying to get this brand's attention, trying to build this channel talking about Lumix cameras and teaching people about Lumix cameras. And it's probably just because I'm like uberly obsessed. I'm just absolutely so obsessed about these cameras, and it's because it's like I see the value in these cameras, like. And I was using these cameras, like you were mentioning, it's like these are the Underdog cameras right now in the market. But I feel like because Lumix knows like they're not the top sellers in comparison to Sony and Canon, but like because of that, they know that they're having to put powerful like uppercut punches in these cameras to kind of make them feel more premium, add more high quality features, add these things, add these innovations. And it's like, because of that, I'm like, dude, this is sick. This is like the thing, like absolutely I love it. The S9, absolutely love it. The fact that you can like take a video, stop recording, and it instantly sends to your phone to edit on your phone is nuts. Like,
it's so nuts.
Struggle with that, like to like have this like phone to camera integration, which is now the next generation needs that more than ever because they're doing all their videos on their phone. A lot of people, the younger generation, are editing on their phone. So I think it was a wise move to try to like pivot their camera and pivot at least this camera as a content creator's camera, even though I know there's a lot of gripe about it. We'll talk a little bit about what we love and hate about this camera in a bit. Yeah. But kind of want to wrap this conversation up in a little pretty bow. I think one thing that you mentioned was how to get the brand's attention, you should stop thinking about yourself and you should start thinking about what you can give to the brand. Like, what can you offer this brand? If it's Lumix or if it's Sony or if it's, you know, any other company, a microphone company, a camera cage company, what can you offer them? And I think the way you hit it was best is like, if I'm getting one free product, I should at least be selling 2 free products or 2 of those products for them, you know, one to cover my end and then one to like make them like more. And that's the reality. They want to see people use these cameras, but like just using the cameras is not enough, I feel like. So I guess kind of what advice would you kind of give to people that are listening or watching this episode to get a brand's attention? And then we'll pivot that over to talking about Japan S9 and all the fun stuff.
Well, I'd say like it's like with a camera company or any other brand or any other company that's selling products or services or you know, experiences and things like that. Like we had already said, step 1 is stop thinking about yourself. And that was kind of one of my kind of key moments when I was working in sales in general. And when you're trying to sell something to somebody, or when you're trying to, like, you know, get this business relationship going, you have to realize that like your customer is the most important part of the exchange for now. You know, you are also important, and people like to worry about like, I want to make sure I'm being treated properly and this and that and this. I get that, but you have to add value first. You can be the one to be generous first, because yeah, maybe you don't have a lot of money, but they have something that you want too, you know? And if I wanted to make an exchange with somebody and give you an apple for free, I'm not expecting to get an orange back. But if I know that you farm a whole lot of oranges and I farm a whole lot of apples and I can trade you one apple for an orange, maybe this is gonna work, you know? So it's being able to add value first. And then once you've added some value, then you can start approaching the company and be like, this is what I can already do, and I'm sure that you see some value in this. Is there something that we can do together? Is there something that we can do to partnership? I don't know, everybody's got different strategies on what you want to you know, start with. Some people like a little bit more of a hardball approach, or you know, you throw a big Hail Mary and see if you get something. But I personally like to think that it's nice to start things a little bit softer sometimes, you know, especially if you're a new creator. Like, I'm a pretty new creator. I don't have a huge base. I don't have a huge follower base. Like, it's not like I make huge waves in this world yet, you know. But the thing is that there's still value that can be done there. And if you can show that you're going to be able to use their product in a way that they want it to be used, or you can show that you're going to be able to use their product in the way that nobody else uses it, you know. For me personally, if using that example, I'm taking these cameras up mountains, in the snow, around like all sorts of different countries, in really, really difficult situations that, you know, most people might not put their cameras. But the fact that I can do it means that somebody else could for sure use it in the rain, you know, or use it in a little bit of a snowstorm, opposed to -30 on the top of a mountain in Kyrgyzstan, you know? So it's good. So I think, yeah, to sum it up, the most important thing that you need to do is to be able to add value for the company that you're trying to get support from. And adding value to the community that you're creating, and adding value to the network. And the more, you know, that's another thing that I say. The network, if you add value to a network, the network then gives you something back. And it's the same thing with brand support and cameras and all sorts of things, you know. You scratch their back, and then they'll probably scratch yours too. And if they don't, that's okay. At least you scratch someone's back.
For sure. Oh my gosh, dude. I feel like this episode has been jam-packed with, I feel like, so much like insight and knowledge on working with brands, and especially some of the topper end, higher end brands that a lot of people look up to. Here's my quick plug to my creators who are watching this episode. If you want to join a Lumix mindset group of people who just love Lumix cameras, I do have a Discord called the Lumix Creators Lumix Creators Club on Discord. Anyone is welcome. All doors are open. We hang out, we chat, talk about cameras, talk about different things like that. So there is going to be a link in the description if you do want to join the Lumix Creators Discord. It's not an official Discord from Lumix. It's just something that I set up for everyone just so we can hang out, chat, and all that good stuff. But Cody, I have a couple more questions, just a little bit. I have really more one specific big question for you. But before we kind of dive into that, I would love to just kind of, where do you want to kind of send everyone and all the people, all the good stuff? We're going to have links in the description. Where do you want to send these lovely people that are joining us today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if people want to come see my Instagram, Cody Scheff, that's always a fun ride because it's just my life. I mean, I've done a pretty decent job of trying to, make it a space where I can talk about more poignant things, but at the end of the day, it's just bleeding my life all into it, like that's what's really happening. So if you want to watch me climb up a mountain and fall down and make a fool of myself and all those types of things, that's probably where I'd start. My media company called Valley Ridge Media, we have a website, we have Instagram as well, but yeah, that's, I don't know how many people want to watch me film a house. But if you really like luxury houses and you want to watch them in slow motion, then there you go.
Awesome, lovely. So kind of getting into the last and final topic of today's conversation, we flash forwarding. You finally got into Japan. You got into the club.
I was in the club.
You were so rad to hang out with. I want to add that. Like, I absolutely just loved hanging out with you. You were like one of my favorite people in Japan when we were having dinner, when we were hanging out, adventuring, getting lost. Oh my gosh, I loved it.
Classic. Getting lost in Japan.
Yes, getting lost in Japan is a great thing. It's so much fun, especially because neither of us were driving anywhere. But the Lumix S9, it got launched, obviously, in Japan, but I remember there was a lot of conversations that we had during that event talking about ways that we could use this camera, and like there's facts that like how you were using the camera and talking about like how you were on the mountain, you could like literally take a video, it's going to your phone, and just like that, it's like this event is happening right now on top of the mountain. I remember this conversation we were having in a train in Japan talking about that. What are a couple ways that you see people could potentially, or yourself, how are you using the Lumix S9 in more of a professional environment like that? Obviously, there's gimbals and different things like that, but for more of the content creator, how are you been using the Lumix S9? And maybe also, what's some firmware updates that you want to see on the S5 II and 2X from features from this camera? Eventually, hopefully, trickle over to those cameras.
Yeah, well, I'd say, that one of the, like you say, one of the most coolest things that you can do with that S9 is being able to have that phone to camera integration. It's so great. And I've just this month, for instance, I've been the photographer in residence for a local tourism company called Nelson Kootenay Lake Tourism. And I had just been tasked with, just getting a certain amount of photos of the area, surrounding areas to be able to, post into their social medias and use into their galleries and things like that. But what I found was really interesting, especially with the S9, is going to certain events around town, or to a music festival that was not far from here up in Caslow. It was sweet because I was able to take high quality video, 4K open gate with great lenses, and be able to get this really awesome B-roll that I could just boom, right back to my camera and send to them to be able to use on Instagram stories, or use on parts of, like, I'm going to call it social media that isn't as serious, like you don't need to take as much effort. You want to just show people what's happening right now, not 2 days from now when you finish your color grading and your editing, it's now, the time of. And already I've been using that. Even when let's say if we're out filming a real estate gig or something like that, and we do have the camera hooked up to a gimbal or all that kind of stuff, I can quickly switch that camera from the MOV where I'm recording like super high quality 6K footage, let's say, and I switch it back to 4K open gate on the MP3 Lite just for a couple seconds to show a nice panning shot of a fancy house. And now you've got that up on your Instagram before you've even left the house. You know, like you haven't needed to do anything and you're just showing, hey, look, there's a new listing that might be coming up. Like interesting things. And that's like 100% professional because there's nothing fun, like we're going to call it fun, about taking pictures of houses and videos of houses. Like that's not all that fun. But it is also something that you can, especially with real estate agents or anybody that's trying to, you know, promote an event of some sort, to be able to take good, high quality video and then put that out into your social media that quickly, in seconds, you know, like really within seconds. All of a sudden you've got just a wealth of delivery time, you know, like those delivery times is something that everybody in the photography and videography world is concerned about sometimes, you know, and like you let's say you're out shooting a concert and someone's like, hey, we need 5 preview photos by 10 p.m. and then you can have the rest of your gallery finished. Well, getting those 5 preview photos with the S9 is so easy. You take the photo, boom, it's on your phone, you like it, change the color grade a little bit, poof, preview photo. Like that's 30 seconds, you know? Like that's awesome. That's awesome.
For certain things, I'm still picking up the S5 2X and like GH7, bunch of cameras like that, because those are just, at the end of the day, more capable cameras. They have longer record times, viewfinders, and all of that. But for personal, for even doing some photo shoots, just the camera I'm picking up probably like 8 out of 10 times, not for professional work, for my personal work, for YouTube work, to even sometimes, yes, professional work for gimbals and photos, shoots, and stuff like that as well. But the Lumix S9 for me has just been like the most fun I've had with a camera in a long time. It's kind of made photography fun for me. It's made like taking quick videos and having them on my phone really fun for me. It's made kind of doing more short form social media content more fun, just because I find it much easier. I have like this little, what is this? This is a selfie stick, but it like extends out, closes up, and it's like, throw my S9 on there and I call it a day basically. It's made doing all that stuff so much fun, and I just absolutely love this camera. I'm so stoked having you on this episode. I feel like there is so much value that you added. So just thank you so much for joining me on this episode.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode. I hope it gave you guys so much value on how to get a brand's attention. Cody is an amazing, talented creator, so you definitely should check him out in the description below. If you want to see another episode talking to another Lumix creator, backstage creator, check out that episode right there. And then YouTube recommends you might like this episode right here. Until next one, guys, peace.